I found a problem, made some changes, and it got worse. That wasn't the plan, so let's talk about it. You see, I'm trying to create the most hard-working team in Germany using performance data, and it seems we've gone backwards. Now, hard-working is subjective, but I've put a number to it. Specifically, looking at distance covered and high-intensity sprints. These are possession-neutral stats. A player is expected to run whether we have the ball or not. I'm also going to add in pressures attempted. This isn't neutral, it's purely out of possession, but a good measure of how willing we are to engage the opposition. So, what does the data say? We can see that we performed more sprints than every other team, which is a pretty good start. We also had the lowest opta, suggesting we are active in trying to apply pressure. What I can't find, however, is a team-level stat to show distance covered, so let's work that out. I've exported distance covered, high-intensity sprints, and pressures attempted for every player in the league, filtering out goalkeepers and also players with fewer than 450 minutes. Normally my cutoff would be 900 minutes, but because I'm looking at this at a team level, I don't want to lose significant data. I've used this to calculate each metric on a per game basis. As pressures are purely out of possession, I've adjusted for possession. And the results are in. We performed the most sprints. We already knew that. We came 6th for distance covered, however, and for pressures we dropped to 8th. If we're going to be the most hard-working team in Germany, we need to improve. So let's take a look at our squad and see where we're coming up short. Keepers aren't really covered here, but Backhouse conceded less than a goal per game. I'm happy with him. Hein returns to Arsenal, so I've promoted Smarklev from the second team as backup, and Kolka will remain third choice. Friedel's percentiles are deliberately wrong. He split time kinda evenly between full-back and centre-back, so I've put his percentiles in the middle of what they'd be for each position. Either way, he's fine. Malatini needs to apply more pressure, but that's a problem for Norwich, who came in with a £4.5 million bid, so I sent him on his way. Stark also needs to pressure more, but is otherwise solid. Woba barely played and he's gone back to Leeds. Fullbacks were, by and large, great. Sugawara was the weakest, yet he's the only lone player interested in joining. I reckon we can find better, so he's back at Southampton. By inference, that means Schmidt also won't be staying. The remaining 3 are all in the final year of their contracts and all want more than I'm willing to pay. So Agu's gone to Bristol City for £4.5 million, Demand to Udinese for £3 million, and Weiser to Al-Khalij for £4 million. Midfield is where we need to improve most. Linen was average at pressuring, Puertas and Stay average sprinters. Puertas returns to Saudi Arabia at the end of his loan. Bittencourt has been released, as has Naby Keita. Alvaro will get a chance to prove himself in the first team. It was just as grim amongst the advanced playmakers. I can't justify extending Schmid, so we sold him to Bristol City for €13.5 million. Hansen Aaron wanted out, so he joined Twente for a bargain $500k. Kovic is young and will get a chance to improve. Up front, it's a sea of green. Boniface was the weakest, but still exceptional. He was also our top scorer. His wage demands are beyond our reach though, so he's going back to Leverkusen. Gruhl was fantastic, but I don't like his wage demands either, so he's gone to Norwich for €7 million. That leaves us with Top to lead the line, supported by the returning Mbangula and Neymar. Actually, Neymar's wage demands are too high too, so he's gone to Al Hazm for €5 million. That's 8 players sold for €42 million, 2 players released, and 6 loans coming to an end. Actually, it's 10 players for €45 million. David Kalnacki starts on a loan to buy that goes through this summer, and we shipped off youngster Leon Opitz too. I came into this season expecting to sign a couple of the loanees, maybe an additional fullback and midfielder. You know, small changes. But so many players in the final year of their contract. We're going to be busy, so let's work out our budgets. Really simple this. We take our bank balance, which is €45 million, deduct our balance from this time last year, 21 million, so we made 24 million profit this season. Now 48 million came from prize money, and I expect we'll make a similar amount next year. I cautiously predict we'll finish at least 6th in the league, which earns us 30 million, and participation in the Champions League group stage, which is guaranteed, nets us a further 18 million. We made 3.5 million in transfer profit from loan fees and the early sale of Amos Piper, so if we take that into account, that brings our overall profit down to about 20.5 million euros. We're going to add this to our actual wage spend to see how much we can pay players and still break even. That's a shade over 52 million euros, so let's call it 1 million per week. For a 25-man squad, that's an average of 40k per player, and I'll cap that at double, or 80k per week for a star player. Now we've got a few players whose contract expires in 2 years. I'm going to get them dealt with now. Marco Friedel gets a 4-year deal for 55k. Jens Stay 60k per week for the same length. And Kiki Top commits the full 5 years for 24.5k, as does Skelly Alvaro. Patrice Kovic has a contract extension clause that's been triggered, leaving just Nicholas Stark. He'll be 33 in 2028, and so no new deal is forthcoming. There are some cultural considerations for transfers. The board wants us to sign German players, preferably from German clubs. We do have the following leagues on full detail though, so those will make up my search criteria. Minimum 1,000 minutes played, and maximum current wage of 40 grand. To work out statistical boundaries, let's head back to the spreadsheet. I've taken every player's best position to loosely categorise them in broad groups: centre-backs, full-backs, defensive mids, attacking mids, wingers and strikers. I've used this to calculate the average for each metric, and also the 80th percentile. Targets will need to be above average for each, but also above the 80th percentile in at least one metric. Let's take centre-backs as an example. Every target must cover at least 10.5 kilometres, perform 7.1 high-intensity sprints and 2.7 pressures per 90. They also need to do at least one of the following: cover 10.8 kilometres, perform 8 high-intensity sprints, or attempt 3 pressures. So without further ado, here are our centre-back options. Maxime Bernauer is fantastic, Klein Beckel is homegrown, Henri Chase splits the two, and despite being Japanese, is also homegrown in Germany. So he's the choice, a 3.1 million euro signing on 18.5k per week. At right back, we've got a surfeit of homegrown options. Kerder leads the way in pressures, Paslak in sprints, Rosenboom in distance. That last name's a bit familiar, eh? Rosenboom was an absolute force for me at USL Dunkirk. Normally I wouldn't consider a player we've signed before, but the criteria was wildly different, so if he fits what we're looking for, that's just testament to his versatility. Perhaps more importantly though, he's homegrown at Werder, and that's why he's the no-brainer choice here, 1.2 million and 12.75k per week. Our left-back options are pretty straightforward. One player records the highest for all 3 metrics. Anton Bauerler cost us just 550k from Paderborn and will earn 13.75k per week. But he's not the only arrival here. Sanusi Bar is Ambi Peel, which means he can provide cover in both fullback positions, signed for 275k and 11 grand per week. In midfield, there is again one clear standout. Hiroki Akiyama completes an astonishing 24.1 high-intensity sprints per 90, which makes my decision to sign Raphael Lubach for 2.5 million and 18.5 grand per week instead a little bit of a surprise. Look, I've been swayed by that whole homegrown thing, at least up until now. Jonas Amichan makes the shortlist for attacking midfielders, but Carey and Gullikson catch the eye more. Carey is the choice here, or would be, if it wasn't for English wage demands. That paved the way for Gullikson to be our marquee signing for 9 million euros and 30k per week. We need a channel forward to replace Gruhl. Egerstein represents the homegrown option. Kars is already playing at a Bundesliga level, whilst Von Moos is the most interesting, but often played on the wing. Experience matters, and so Kars gets the nod, 4.7 million and 20 grand a week. And to replace Boniface, we have Kuric as the impressive presser, Hanslick as the sprinter, and Pieringer as the German. Hanslick is the standout here, but wants to be a regular starter, and that might impact my development of top. So Pieringer, and his 2 million euro release clause it is. he'll earn 21k per week. That's 8 players in for 23.5 million, netting us a total transfer profit of 21.5 million. Our wage spend comes in at 600k per week. That's not just under budget, but we're on track to spend 6 million less than last year. Normally when I underspend by quite a bit, I worry I've been too tight. But this time I feel good. I feel the squad has improved, at least in terms of what I'm trying to achieve. So let's talk tactics. Our setup is a squashed 4-4-2 diamond in possession. We look to stretch play both vertically and horizontally by playing at a highish tempo, but otherwise quite varied in our approach. Out of possession, it's an intense strikerless 4-3-3. That worked pretty well, but we need to press more, and we could do with covering more ground. So I've added pass into space to encourage us to lead players into making more runs and by extension, cover more ground. I'm going to ask the deep line forward to move into channels, whilst the wide central midfielder on that side will also make more forward runs. The other wide central midfielder will take more risks. I'm also pushing the advanced playmaker forward a little. He'll now have a free roll, and I hope that will see him drift into pockets of space more frequently. And it's also a proper 4-3-3 out of possession now too. The attacking midfielder has been pushed forward in the hope of applying a bit more pressure on the backline. This will be our defensive setup against tougher opposition. In easier games, I've swapped the pressing midfielders for tracking attacking midfielders. Again, I hope this will allow us to apply more pressure initially in the opposition half before dropping back. All of the front 5 are told to press more often. That gives us a squad plan that looks a little bit like this, not quite 2 players in every position. Friedel and Barr are cover at left back. All of our midfielders are versatile enough to cover each other, and we have some players in the second team who I'm comfortable stepping in if needs be, but hopefully won't be required. All that's left to do is play the game. Here's how we got on. I can't think of a better way to introduce yourself to the fans than a debut goal. Well, actually I can. A debut hat-trick perhaps. A 4-0 win over Hamburg and 3-1 against Hertha followed before Chris Furyk once again consigned us to defeat. We kick-started our Champions League campaign away against Panathinaikos. A chance for Mbangula to impress, and he duly delivered. We were impressive, but so was Bartolomew Dragowski, whose heroics kept us at bay time and time again. But there's a risk in speaking too soon. An absolute howler allowed Mbangula to double our lead. That lit a fire beneath Panathinaikos, as Backhouse prevented a stark own goal, but we did not heed the warnings. Pellistri danced inside before finding Juricic to halve the deficit. Rather than defend the lead, we pushed forward, Kars playing through Kovic to secure the win. Back to winning ways in the league, 4-2 against Hoffenheim, 2-1 against Augsburg, sandwiching a goalless draw against PSV. Just 6 games in, but we sit atop the Bundesliga. We comfortably dispatched Wolfsburg before being twice pegged back by Leverkusen, then losing valiantly to Liverpool. Despite a poor campaign last season, Dortmund had the better of us, and once again Jurassi proved to be the thorn in our side. We should have equalised immediately, but Mbangula spurned the chance. Set pieces have been a crutch for us, and Mbangula's knockdown caused havoc, allowing Gullikson to pounce. And then the game turned. Felix and Maitre got his marching orders, and we were in the ascendancy. Rosenboom driving down the right flank found Stay at the far post, but his header was wide. Dortmund can counter with glorious efficiency. Loney Ahmad was sprung free late on. He cut back, saw Bayer's run, and that was the winner. A cup win against Schalke and Bundesliga victory over St. Pauli brought October to a close, with us having slipped down to 3rd. Mbangula gave us a shock win in Porto, only for Frankfurt to humble us 5 days later. Bayern had our number last season too, and a free kick routine sent them on their way, only to be ruled out for the tightest offside. It was not one-way traffic though. The cars lined up a shot from the edge of the area. Narrowly over. But in a game of fine margins, Bayern always find a way. By paying off the ref. never a second booking. The feeling of injustice would soon intensify as Bayern win a penalty. Okay, that's a clear handball. Up steps Harry Kane, but Mio Backhouse wins the battle. Could we perhaps steal the win? Stark clearly thinks so. We just need to hold on in a packed Allianz Arena with 10 men. Which we can't. Another goalless draw in the Champions League before we scraped past 10-man Mönchengladbach. December saw us beat Kaiserslautern in the Cup, Mainz in the league, and get absolutely thrashed by Inter. Reigning champions Leipzig next, and Antonio Nusa flashes an early effort just wide. Moments later, Romelu is sent through on goal, but Backhouse makes himself big. Just before half-time, Gullikson seizes on a weak sidewall challenge, and we have the lead against the run of play. Can David Raum salvage a draw? Denied. A 2-1 win over Hanover brought us to the winter break, where we had somehow leapfrogged Dortmund into first place, albeit on goal difference. On our return to action, we eased past Freiburg before the derby against Hamburg. Put title ambitions aside, the Nord derby is a must-win, and Gullikson clearly got the memo. Moments later, he played in Mbangula, who wasted a great chance. In the second half, Mbangula would get another bite at the proverbial cherry, and this time he made no mistake. The goal of the game, however, would be scored by Hamburg. Aoiche with a delightful volley. I can appreciate it, but we're not going to let them back into the game. Jens Stay wraps up the win late on. We were having a moment. Wins over Copenhagen, Union Berlin, Le Havre and Hertha rounded out January with us now 3 points clear. And Münster, Stuttgart, Porto and Hoffenheim couldn't stop us either. Second leg against Porto, and we just need to defend our slim advantage. Victor Froholt has no interest in that. No worries, we have Patrice Kovic. He skips inside to restore our aggregate lead. Only for De Jong to seize on an error and Vega to pull things level once again. Extra time deserves something extra special, like a car's bang. But Porto are nothing if not stubborn. Rodrigo Mora's raking long ball found Samu, who had the composure to round Backhouse and send the game to penalties. They drilled it low. Samu placed it in exactly the same spot. Lubac opted for the other side, whilst Varela slotted it down the middle. Kars scored the pick of the penalties, and Sousa followed with the worst. Heeringer kept his cool. Mora kept Porto in it. Leinen to seal the win, and he duly delivered. How quickly things can change. A disappointing home draw against Augsburg, 3-3 versus Wolfsburg, and we had now slipped back behind Dortmund in the league. Liverpool put us on the brink of UCL elimination before sealing the deal in the away leg. That sandwiched a comfortable victory against Leverkusen before we visited Dortmund. Make no mistake, we need the win, but Adeyemi came closest early on. Their best chances surely will come through a mad, like penalties. Bensebaini against Backhouse. Backhouse wins. Every campaign has its defining moment, the penalty save that spurs the team on to score. Or is it the goal conceded that spurs on the comeback? Gerassi's equaliser was followed shortly thereafter by Gerassi's assist. Could we respond? But Friedel lofts it forward, Piringer gets there first from an offside position. There was still time. Sanusi Bar drives down the right, Piringer meets it at the far post. An injury time miracle. A 2-0 win over St. Pauli followed, and we were back in first place. Dortmund picked up just 2 points in March. Win out, and the title is ours. We don't get off to a good start. Dagim gives Frankfurt the lead, but Bauer digs out a cross for Top to equalise. And we concede once again, and Burkhardt sweeping home unmarked. Another cross, another header, seals the draw. A much better start against Bayern. Gullikson fires high into the top corner. A little bit of fortune for our second, but who am I to complain? We just need to be sensible, not turn the ball over in our own half, nor allow Kane to chip the keeper. And just after the restart, Musiala finds Elise and the scores are level. But there is still time. Hearing a fine stay, but his pass is loose. Oh no, not like this. Harry Kane races through to secure the comeback. We need to bounce back, and Kars is the man to help us do so. Our lead was short-lived, and Kleindienst tapping in from close range, but I said Kars would help us, and he set up top to restore our lead before Pieringa was set free late on to seal a 3-1 victory. From here, things got nervy. Gullikson scored the only goal as we beat Mainz. Just one goal in it against Leipzig, unfortunately for them. It was Kars who scored the winner against Hanover. He'd do it once again in the season finale against Freiburg. That win meant we needed Dortmund to drop points in Frankfurt. Of course, they had little intention of doing so, and Pascal Gross fired them into an early lead. They got a helping hand from Carlos Santos, quite literally palmed it into Gerassi's path. But Frankfurt saved us last season with a late Burkhardt goal, and he halved the deficit. But too little, too late. Dortmund are the champions. A stunning turnaround for a team that finished mid-table last season. I did not expect us to challenge for the title this season, so I'm not too disappointed. Not least because there's still some silverware up for grabs. We dispatched Bayer Leverkusen in the DFB Pokal semi, setting up a chance for revenge against Borussia Dortmund. An early breakaway sees Bayer charging down the flank. He waits, feeds Gerassi, and that's 1-0 Dortmund. They chance to double their lead, but Gross is denied by Backhouse. We have come to rely on corners. Barr takes aim from distance, only to strike the woodwork, and Stay heads in the rebound. Another Dortmund set piece, and this time Gerassi heads onto the roof of the net. With 6 minutes remaining, Lubach works some space, floats it over the top, and Kars gives us the lead. To hold on, we need to stop attacks before they develop. Rosenboom takes one for the team. And that is how we won our first trophy of the save. Oh, the relief. I've seen this script so many times before. Lose the league, lose the cup final, finish runners-up in everything. I'm delighted to finally get some silverware. Now, success is good, but what I really care about is hard work. So let's take a look at how our players got on. Our two most expensive friends were electric, combining for 54 goals and 22 assists between them, with Kars also covering the most distance per 90. Kiki Dop came into his own as the deep line forward with 28 total goal contributions. Following in assists were our new fullbacks Bauerle and Rosenboom with 12 and 10 respectively. Bauerle also led the team in both sprints and pressures. But I can also see that some of our metrics are worse, specifically in midfield. Distance covered, sprints and pressures seem to be down across the board here. We need to head back to the spreadsheet. Same details exported, same filtering applied, and how about that? We were actually now first for distance covered. We ran an additional 3 kilometers per game. We performed 8 more high-intensity sprints to extend our lead in that metric too, but we've actually attempted fewer possession-adjusted pressures. We've actually jumped up a spot relatively, moving from 8th last season to 7th. Whilst our individual midfielder numbers appear to have regressed, we have as a team improved. Still, if we're going to be the most hard-working team in Germany, we need to get better. I have some ideas, but that will be for next episode. See you then. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a like or maybe even subscribing. Your support is greatly appreciated. And if you want a little more, you can become a YouTube member or Patreon, which includes director's cut versions of videos. Links in the description below.